So, welcome. Good to see you, Erica Kim. Thank you, everybody, for showing up here. Hey, let's greet each other for the beginning. A couple of guys are new here, so that's great.
Hello, everybody. Hello.
Oh.
Hello.
Yeah, hello,
Hello.
love.
Well, we did get, I'm gonna make a little introduction. It is amazing actually what we have received as a theme because it is within the teachings of A Course in Miracles, not such an attractive theme to talk about awakening and sex. And yet already in just looking at the theme, and it's for me anyway, not something unfamiliar by knowing the urtext, the notes that Helen Schackman received at the very beginning, where there's quite extensively talked about sexuality. And yet there are, of course, as we mentioned last time or in the Spanish uh, class, there are things that maybe came through her mind by being part of this psychology department on Columbia University where she worked. And there were many things also that, in my opinion, had to be at least edited or were very personally about Helen and Bill and therefore not included in the edited version. But we looked together, Erica, Cam, and myself, at thoughts that are very personal to ourselves. And so the theme came for, of course, up that we want to look at that feelings or thoughts or actions of sexuality tend to be private or are kept private in the human experience. Also, of course, has something to do with the conditioning of religious indoctrination, and that it is in connection with guilt thoughts or shame. And we kept that for hundreds or thousands of years. And now we see there's a complete opening and in that sense, a change into that understanding what the connection with the mind of God reveals to us and what miracle is really to experience and to find through not anymore rejecting or denying sexuality, but just bringing it into an alignment so that it is no longer a hiding from God, and it is no longer a making special of ideas of happiness, of ecstasy, of pleasure in any type, but really brings forth I would say, that what the eyes or the perception of sensories can never really catch. And we are talking in that sense that light experience in communication with God. And so we had also some perspectives about looking at suppression and how those feelings, when they are suppressed, what they bring about in, on the emotional level, and of course, all forms of fear. And maybe I invite you, Erica and Cam, to give your first perspective of in that respect, so that we have kind of in the beginning a picture where we want to look at or go along.
Yeah. So I was surprised. I expected it to show differently, but this morning what I felt was a lot of rage. Toward men, actually. It was first coming out like rage projected on men. And then I saw, since I'm really young, I have tried to present myself in the world as highly desirably sexually. Since I'm very young, I created this, here I am, everybody wants me, I'm so hot. And I kept playing this game. I think I still am doing it to some degree because, and not really giving it over to the Holy Spirit, because I'm in a marriage and there's fear that if I'm not presenting myself super sexually and so amazing sexually, Erica, that maybe my husband won't want me anymore. Maybe so there's a place where I am, yeah, I still do this. I still have desire I see out in the world to be seen as attractive. And I don't know, I could say so much more, but that was my starting point. Like that I there's a lot of specialness there for me. Yeah.
Cameron, what would you say as your beginning words?
So the sexual impulse has been a very, very powerful experience. And that was the one thing my father, he didn't talk much. And that was the one thing that he said when I was younger. He said, sex is a very powerful thing. And that was it. And that's what he left it with me. So that was my learning until the most recently when, well, sorry, I gotta stay on that for a second. There has been a strong attachment, of course. And now that I have been in this mind training and being along with all of you and Erica mostly has shown me so much of how to focus differently. And there has been a lot of willingness to step forth into being guided by the Holy Spirit, but then I still see how stuck I am and how I still want to be able to share that experience. But I see it differently. And the Spanish class the other, 2 weeks ago almost now really shifted something for me, and it has opened up a lot of space for a large amount of understanding of depth and love that is very important and not the behavior. And it has given me so much more focus on what is important.
Nice, thank you. Well, on the personal level, if I want to add on my own personal experience, I was actually from very young on, I felt always very free to live and express sexuality in relationships and just as a life energy of myself. And it was really through A Course in Miracles and the teaching of the Course in the beginning, which I want to bring in also, so that we include and come to the teachings, how Jesus actually goes into it and shows us aspects of what the human mind is looking for through expression of sexuality. But in my decision to feel free in the expression of sexuality, I lived actually first my life as okay, there is really nobody out there who would hold me in a bondage or want to make me guilty except myself. So whenever I felt a step of guilt, I could also very early on see that this was based on thought forms that needed transformation in my own mind. And those thought forms were misinterpretations of what I was really looking for. And that's also where Jesus, at the beginning in the Course, looks with us, because he calls it there the physical closeness. And in the original version, it is talked about sex and sexuality, but it is brought in context that the mind is really looking for that contact of God and is seeking the revelation. Yeah. In the original version, this came into Helen's mind as the word in plural, revelations. And maybe what she meant with revelations, because revelation is actually a singular recognition, a singular experience in our mind. She probably meant realizations or recognitions in that context. And it was then edited, and you find just an excerpt in the edited version in chapter 1 in the section 2. And I want to start out with that and shed some light from with both editions. Just a few sentences how it is put in the edited version and how it is put in the original notes that Helen received from Jesus. In the edited version, it was brought um, in plural, in singular, and says that um, a revelation induces complete but temporary suspension of doubt and fear, and it reflects the original form of communication between God and His creation. So between God and the Son, between me and God, I could say, involving the extreme personal sense of creation, sometimes thought, and here it is, sometimes thought in physical relationships. And I think this is what we find out. We all were seeking. We all were seeking a goal that physical relationship should offer us, that should make us happy, that should allow us to feel love and let love flow. I was guided then yesterday. Diana, you might like that. And there was a video on YouTube, and they just brought some music and showed some pictures about Rastafarians in Jamaica, and completely relaxed and how they lived. And I could sense that that's really what I was seeking always in a human experience, that sense of togetherness, that sense of some connection that makes sense with nature, with maybe with the marijuana, maybe with the music and dancing, very important. Né? But in an expression in which it is experienced as unified and one in our own soul and mind. And that has a high value, because this is how we started out our search for who we are. Né? And that doesn't mean that anything gets lost with that, but the Holy Spirit does rearrange it once uh, the clear direction to the miracle is set. And in the edited version, it continues, physical closeness cannot achieve that. So this finding revelation through physical closeness. Miracles, however, are generally interpersonal, between persons, it means, né? Interpersonal, and result in true closeness to others. Revelation unites you directly with God. Miracles unite you directly with your brother. So that's an important information, that my connection with my brother, and of course I include as my brother the whole animal and plant worlds and mineral worlds and whatever worlds I carry in my mind. Those are my brothers, and the miracles are actually uniting us. And revelation unites us with God, in which the picture gets lost literally about that there would be an objective reality that I would call sexuality, and define the meanings or the goals around that. So that's why he says also it cannot be achieved. Now, just for a moment, how it is expressed, I just give here an excerpt of the Robert Barry's annotated, complete and annotated edition. That's also chapter 1 and then 28, which is under the theme Miracles are means of organizing different levels of awareness. And so it comes here in, and that was all left out, that there was first a definition given about the miracles come from the below conscious or the subconscious, we call it now, level. And originally it was still held in plural, so revelations, or I would say recognitions, true recognitions, come from the above conscious or the superconscious level. And the conscious level is in between. And then he came also on that level, he defined consciousness, saying it is the level which engages in the world and is capable of responding both to external and internal impulses. So if sexuality would be here part of the internal impulse that is projected to the outside. And then from there, I'm just going to go further down. There, he says, he talks about these revelations that should be noted that they involve an extremely personal sense of closeness to creation. So he brings it here together that there is something that we are and that defines our true identity, which we could call creation itself, and this extreme personal and close and sense of closeness is really where this turnaround of which you also spoke, Cameron, would come from. And and he continues, which human beings try to find in sexual relationships. We find through sexuality a closeness to ourself, literally, to the creative source of ourself. And when we open our mind and don't hold on to limited meanings, that is what our experience of sexuality is and should be. And then it loses literally the meaning of sexuality in the traditional past way of understanding. Then the word might still be used so that there's a connection there of what we are talking about, but it becomes a completely different meaning. And exactly at that point, we can join in now and see how sexuality can be and should be used miracle minded from a miracle minded perspective. And here he added on, this confusion is responsible, so find it, trying to find it. Uh, this confusion is responsible for the depression and fear which are often associated with sex. And that's the part where I personally didn't like it then anymore, but and kind of knew that there must be a different way of looking at it or experiencing it. Like just the way as a human being to just have a moment of pleasure and a moment of some exciting feeling, at some point that was not enough. No? But the turnaround really came through the teaching of the Course, I have to say. This can be misunderstood by personal willful consciousness as an impulse towards sexual gratification. That's what I just mentioned. So, how do we come? That's the question. How do we come from the human perspective of just looking for sexual gratification to a soul fulfilling experience and contact of God through the same means? Yeah, because that's possible, and that's my experience also to share. And from there, he comes what we heard in the edited version. Revelation unites you directly with God. Miracles unite you directly with others, he said. And a little bit further down, the deeper level of your subconscious. So, as we mentioned first, that the subconscious is where the miracles come from, that subconscious, below conscious level. The deeper levels of your subconscious always contain the impulse to miracles, but you are free. Everyone, mind is free to fill its superficial levels, which are closer to consciousness, with the impulses of this world and to identify yourself with them. This results in denying yourself access to the miracle level underneath. And that's why we were looking for a solution, because we could feel that there's a blockage there that denies us access to the miracle level, which opens up then to the revelation level. In conscious actions, then your interpersonal relationships also become superficial and miracle inspired relating becomes impossible. So, this is very valuable information because on that point, I knew I have a choice. And what is my new choice in respect to the same theme or to whatever it meant at that time to in my mind? But I could see that the directive also that was given, give everything to the Holy Spirit, no matter how I feel, no matter what it means. Sure, as Erica, as you mentioned, in the beginning there might be partner, the love affair, etc., etc. But at the end, the miracle is worth more for us, and we start experimenting by just giving it to the Holy Spirit and knowing also that's a very important point in the teaching of the Course. Nothing is being taken away without our consent. The Holy Spirit doesn't take away anything before I gladly and I beg Him literally to relieve me of that, what I don't like anymore. So even to give it to Him doesn't mean anything that there would be loss involved. Right? It's only He only takes away when we are willing to say, I have really no use of this anymore, and I'm willing to not use it anymore for my existence here in time space. Okay, I pass on the mic to you again, Erica and Ken.
So you already sort of spoke on this, but I want to say it again. And I find it less and less as I get older, but when that impulse is so strong, it's like the impulse to eat or go to the bath, you know, when that impulse is like wanting to join or wanting that sexual gratification is so strong, then what? Just pause and give it to the Holy Spirit? Or, you know, it's like sometimes I have that impulse, oh, I'm going to give Cameron a kiss or I'm going to hug him. The impulse is there. It's natural. I still feel like I don't know what to do with that energy. I mean, normally I would just go along with it.
I think that mhm. I
I know
think the answer is very obvious in the sense of how am I doing for myself, you know? If I am in love and extension and happy, then I can just be myself. I don't need to follow any concept or any indication or directive, you know, because then I am the extension of love. The only thing is when I feel there's a limitation to it. And if I feel there's a limitation or I keep it literally here in the dream on the timeline, then I better make a pause first, give it to the Holy Spirit, and then see how He moves with the grace of God. He moves me, and maybe it might be similar to what I did before, or maybe completely different.
Yeah, thank you. Because I was just going to say, maybe when I feel this, it's just an old idea. Oh, I'm feeling this way. Now we have sex, and this is how sex looks. And I just keep bringing that old idea. And the next part of it that's always been weird for me, and now we're talking about heterosexual sex, but that it's always comes to, well, we're joining, but we're blocking procreation here because right now we're not trying to have a child. I'm going into something that's always felt off about it for me, is that it's a coming together, but there's a way to avoid what naturally the act brings about. Cam said, well, animals do this, but animals are just in it entirely. There's no stop the procreation, birth control. That's not happening. And that's always felt completely off for me about that joining. So and now I'm going into something else.
I don't agree with how it is expressed so that's not in the edited version, but in the original. We shared that, I think, in the Spanish class, that where the line is sexuality should only be used for procreation. I do not agree with that. But I might be wrong, you know. And, I mean, when I was teaching that years ago, also from the Urtext, I was okay, wow, that's quite a perspective, and I left it open. But the more actually, that should not be in the course, that line, because if it would be only for procreation, then I'm gonna start out that way. Everything, how I experience myself on the human level, and in that understanding of revelatory thought and what has been given us, and miracle mindedness and right mindedness, is clearly my fabrication. That means I take responsibility. This is what I made up for myself in my mind, not God. Yeah. So that's the basis. So then, okay, what is about all the part of pleasure that comes in the ecstasy of pleasure and orgasm, uh, to that realization I'm in communication and contact with God, right? So, okay, I can say that comes still from that's still part of my fabrication, but I must have had an idea with that. Né? And otherwise, I would have stayed on the animal level, where it is just about the act of procreation and done with it. Né? But since there is something entered into the consciousness that had a sense that this can be used in order to find the connection with God. Né? And if the connection with God is found, if the mind can have a light experience with it, that means that it was successful, that plan, that idea that I made up, that we made up in our mind. And that means also that in that act of procreation, of the act of sexuality, the meaning of beyond procreation was part of it. It was just covered up or needed these thousands and thousands of years in order to unfold and blossom. Né? So my perspective is, yes, the majority of where we come from, and from the let's say historic evolutionary part, the huge part, it's like the subconscious is the huge part of how consciousness operates here, is procreation. But there was also a part from the very beginning, the mind was opening towards the pleasure, where this connection and contact and communication with God was unfolding, no matter how much time that took. So that means for me, sexuality has not only its meaning for procreation, but also for finding out who we are and conscious contact with God. Cameron?
So going off of that, to find oneself in that behavior, for me, is very tricky to really know whether the ego is pushing that impulse, or there is full support from the truth and God for that to occur. And so much of that speciality and energy that's been given to how powerful it is, like I was saying and I wanted to say a little more earlier, but with the power, it separates and it places it in a higher value than walking down the street, right? So between those two things, it's very clear or I shouldn't say it's clearer, it's easier to discern whether you're supported to walk down the street or go in a sexual act and behave with someone. Now,
Mhm.
the ego pushes that because it's so strong and it's so ingrained, and there's so much want for that. And for me, there's been a shift in understanding where there's true love and where that is shared versus just, oh, we really feel this way. Let's go release this urge. And so to be able to carry both and then to place your focus and intention or willingness above all of that first and foremost is tricky, because where is it in I know that's like a very personal experience, but to be able to be aware, yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I think those levels work together very fine, like the release of, let's say, energetic tension or which result in the urge for sexual expression, né? And then the part where it becomes revelatory or an extension of the love, as you describe it. I think they go together. The question is only always, how am I dealing with that? And of course, if there's any doubt, is my expression one of the ego or one of love? I have to check in with the Holy Spirit. It is the Holy Spirit who will tell us, you know, like, especially with sexuality, I think the whole thing, the moment, uh, also you guys, you're together now for many years, no? And it's you can say, well, we have all the time we need, there's no hurry because we know it all anyway, no? So the more time we take and stretch it out in time, the more time I give myself for the communication with the Holy Spirit, no? And then already the focus goes onto the communication and not so much on the acting out, no? But even if there is the sense of, okay, right now I need that release because I'm so energetically so tense or whatever, even then, the Holy Spirit would not be against it. And that's important to know. The Holy Spirit would just use that energy again to bring forth what the ego never can and never will. And that is the clarity that we can develop. The ego will never want an extension of love to the other. The ego will never give sexuality and share so that it is on equal parts, or whoever is part of it, same satisfactory or same connective, same love feeling, same connection with God. The ego will never. And you check it, just do it like in the full animal power and see, and then look inside from the perspective of the ego perspective. It's just about it oneself. I want to be satisfied. I want to get rid of that energy. It's not even looking at the other, not talking about joining with the other. No? That's
Yeah.
the Holy Spirit. He uses the energy in order that we extend and we join and come to an extension, actually. Wow, we are now in maybe first a love bubble, which we will find out is not true love, but even that will again open up revelatory into the love of God. So I can let things be exactly as they are. If I have a right-minded mind, I will always go along and want to extend something that is eternal, what we call love or light or peace, whatever it is in that context. And that is really the training. It was mentioned in the description also that we know from Eastern philosophies over thousands of years. The minds were trained in order to remember, even through the act of sexuality, that there's a peace, there is a oneness, there is a love beyond comprehension that wants to be extended as a thought, mentally from heart to heart, we say. And that's the game changer. That makes it completely different. Then there might be the outcome uh, for me personally, I have to laugh. It's kind of it becomes so ridiculous. The picture of the past of doing sex or being then having an expression or an experience of the letting go of the release, but the mind goes immediately in the complete joining and sharing and experience of oneness in my mind. And of course, that is then experienced together as one. And I think that releases us completely of the guilt that there would be anything wrong with anything. But how do I deal with it? How do I go along and literally become the teacher who is the Holy Spirit Himself in expression, without a word, without a conceptual thinking about it, but really just of uh, reflecting what my purpose with anything is. And that includes sexuality too, Erica.
Yeah, so if I feel then guilt or shame or that feeling of hiding or like about sex, it's a good indication that I'm using that to further identify as a body or
Mhm.
that, yeah, right. Because that
Right.
strongly showed up in relation to sex. Like I'll feel the desire and go into it and the release, and then I feel like, ugh. And I thought that that was projected on me. I mean, I didn't grow up with Christian doctrine, but I
Right.
thought, oh, this is just ideas projected on me, but I feel guilty because it's not who I am, because
Yeah.
I'm using it to further validate the ego. And that
Yeah,
hurt
and
me.
deep down, we were just touching it before. There is, uh, there was the indoctrination and the education. This is only done for procreation, and you are not doing it right now for procreation. So that means I'm guilty right away, because comes from the subconscious up, of course, and reminds me what it's supposed to be by how the
Yeah,
establishment was giving it to us. No?
no, it's true. Because if I think about it, there have been times when I'm having sex and I think, oh, God is watching and God doesn't like this. God is like disappointed in me because this sex is really kinky. God can't see this, you know?
Yeah,
Yeah. And then I feel sick, guilty, and a lot of remorse. It's
yeah.
ugh, it's heavy if I'm really honest. It's
But
heavy.
that's look, here's where the work starts, and we are all into that work, and we can be so grateful for the guidance that is given us. And I mean, He is in our mind and guides us. No? And if I so the whole work is to allow what those subconscious concepts are to that they can come to surface. The moment they come into the consciousness, I can see, okay, here's my emotion or my feeling is exactly the evidence where I have to go and look at, because there's a thought form behind which was so small kept so that I could stay and define myself as this little identity separate from God. Ne? But the moment I allow that again to come to surface, whatever it is, there's a guilt feeling, there's a fear, there's a shame, as you mentioned it, whatever those feelings are, I can immediately check if this is what I still want to keep and defend, or if I give it again to the Holy Spirit and ask Him to heal me of that and to liberate me literally of that. So again, the situation that is set up through sexuality is the means to help me that I can touch those thoughts, bring them to surface, and start the work with them. We never did that. We never did that. We put it again back down because,
Yeah.
oh, it's not for procreation. That means it's I'm the sinner anyway, you know, and that just gets the stamp on it, and it's confirmed. Nah? And now we're gonna go all the way, and what I appreciate so much and what I love so much is that there's a sense of fearlessness now in me and in the consciousness. And that sense of fearlessness comes from uh, I cannot really lose anything. The losing anything is the idea that I would uh, lose any memory or anything that makes me as a human, and I would become this spiritual holy vegetable. No? And we all had those insane thoughts. No? And, and when we were really in contact with the Holy Spirit, His wisdom, that voice that speaks for God, we call Jesus or whatever voice, uh, He will always show us that there is no loss involved whatsoever. We can be completely ourselves. We should enjoy ourselves. We should just involve that higher mind, that Holy Spirit, in order to arrive where we started out with that contact and communication with God. And that's it, you know. The moment I have an experience of light and love that extends and shares, mission fulfilled. Ne? I'm not here. That means I'm not here. I'm not in a body. I'm not doing anything between body. I'm literally with myself back home in heaven. Yeah. And then what it means is that, you know, when we talk about sexuality, you know, that's the means absolutely for that memory. So again, it's an indication of am I willing to deal with it on on an on a level where I want to see that differently and I welcome the change. And what do I know how it's gonna change in the expression part? Ne? It's changing anyway all the time. Ne? It's never the same. Or do I say, okay, that part is anyway secondary and it's not really about it? And all I am expressing and find myself in expression is always just the means for where the journey goes along. And do I dedicate myself now to have a completely new experience that will lead to a complete revelation where there's no seeking of anything in physical relationship, but it is literally the opening and revealing minds are joined. No? You know, then it's about minds. Oh my God, minds have the same idea of sexuality for a moment, act it out physically, which is also just a thought in the mind, and go further out through the mind into what we call into the light and love. And let that be the revelation of that contact of God. And that's what we really all want and we're always looking for. And of course, the learning is, and I want to bring in that part that is also in the edited version in the chapter 7 of chapter 1, the distortions of miraculous impulses. I have to learn to know what is a miracle impulse and what is literally the impulse from the past, which was uh, giving it as the physical impulse and just in on the level of the ego and gratification on that level. And he says here the confusion of miracle impulses with physical impulses is a major perceptual distortion. We are talking and doing that class also because we are just getting literally corrected and receive the correction of perceptual distortions. No? Physical impulses are misdirected miracle impulses. That's all. It's just a misdirection. It's just a limitation on the miracle impulse. All real pleasure comes from doing God's will. So I need to find out what is God's will for me. And that will always only be the extension of love, of happiness, of peace. There will never be anything else of God's will to find. This is because not doing it, His will, is a denial of self. Denial of self results in illusions. And this is what we know. This is where we are coming from. Ne? And all the stories and all the projections around it. While correction of the error brings release from it, correction of the error. The moment I involve the Holy Spirit and let me guide by Him, I'm already in the correction. Do not deceive yourself into believing that you can relate in peace to God or to your brothers with anything external. The whole mind training will always lead me from my external perception and projection towards my own thoughts within, and letting go my own meanings of those thoughts within, I come into peace and stillness of mind, into connection with the Holy Spirit. Child of God, you were created to create the good, the beautiful, and the holy. Why would I exempt sexuality from that? from from the good, the beautiful, and the holy? It's the experience that we have with it that will communicate and basically shows us the way, that there's nothing there to feel shameful or guilty about it. Do not forget this. The love of God for a little while must still be expressed through one body to another. It's here. That's in the edited version. That's not even the original version. Yeah. Nobody reads that when we talk about sexuality. That's Jesus teaching us, hey, don't worry about it. It's completely okay. The love of God for a little while. This is just a little while. This is like nothing. 15 billion years of evolution we are going through, of this little universe we are defining. must be expressed through one body to another, because vision is still so dim. So what we are learning is vision to clarify the light and seeing through that light. You can use your body best to help you enlarge your perception, so you can achieve real vision, of which the physical eye is incapable. That's why if we are active or continue in actions, including sexuality, that represent the illusion or the past, it's always good to go all the way and withdraw literally from the evidence that the eyes, the sensory organs give, bring it within, No, my eyes are not evidence for what love is or what my contact with God is. It's internal, inside. I know it, I feel it, I think it literally. Learning to do this is the body's only true usefulness. So to enlarge the perception, to go beyond the perception, to come to true perception. And then he goes into fantasies and says fantasy is a distorted form of vision. You see, then the storyline that is projected out there in the fantasy gets basically undone, because then we are only sharing how we feel inside and how much love we have inside and how this love wants to give itself and express itself. End of the story. That's all there is. It's literally a teaching oneself, a recognition that there is nothing else there than love. Love I am, love I have remained. God is but love, and therefore so am I. We are just reviewing in those lessons. Cam.
Yeah. So as you're talking, I can feel in my system a lot of judgment and a lot of right or wrong. Is this the right way to do it? Is that the right way to do it? Should you behave this way? And if you are saying it's okay and to follow those impulses in an experience to further oneself, is that okay? To try that, to do that. But then I'm going through my head and saying, yeah, that's not really, I understand that's not what it is, the teaching of it. But I have judgment with the way that the behavior is acted on. And I'm feeling, yeah, it's been that way for me. If someone is so free and willing to just experience sex that way as a justification for enlightenment, and that for me doesn't feel right. So it's clear that that's not the right path for me. But for someone else, maybe it needs to be that way for a moment. And that's will further them, I guess, in a sense. Yeah, so I can just feel a lot of that stuckness in myself when it comes to this. And I'm not fully there with accepting other ways in certain ways. So yeah.
Yeah, well, I have to counter speak to you because you are here, so you must be ready to hear that.
Yes. Yes,
And,
of
and even
course.
to say I'm not ready to hear it or to go along, my answer would be too late, my friend, too late. So, of course, we can start out anew again and come along again, but we don't need to. You heard that we basically opened it up to the greater communication with our higher mind, which is the Holy Spirit, and you can just leave it with that and start experimenting with that. And that will be more than enough, I promise you. And I definitely are with you. It's never about justification of enlightenment, and we have seen also like scandals of spiritual teachers and gurus who really went into sexual abuse and justified it with whatever concept. But that would be never justifiable, because that would still be the ego being completely involved then for not coming to a one mind, one soul experience and wanting to experience that from oneself and wanting to give that. But it's kind of, okay, you are my follower and I'm gonna take that for you because I have that urge. Ne? It's pure ego. Ne? So it just falls into that category how the ego deals with it. And of course, there is plenty of spiritual concepts part of that category, no question. Yeah, but this is not really uh, what we want to do. We don't want to justify it spiritually. We want to open up to that connection with our higher mind, with the higher self, with the Holy Spirit, with the communication, with the voice that speaks for God. And then in that trust, go along and not judge ourselves, not crucify ourselves, and not feel guilty, but see that there is truly a miracle then being shown, and we are used literally to become that expression of that miracle. Yeah, is that okay for you? So to just go along and experiment with that and see where it leads you?
Yes, of course. And the to lift that limitation has expanded a lot of space. And this last week more so because we were away from the children, so there was a lot of quiet, which allowed for so much more stillness to be in. And within that space, there was such an expansion of the love that I have for Erica and then for everybody, because I was able to open and really sit there and hold that space for myself. And it it is, yeah, it was one of those experiences that lifted and really, really solidified the trust and the love for all.
Mhm.
And then I was able to share that with Erica more so than I ever have, which is beautiful because it's so new all the time now. And to hold that idea it's wonderful to have that space. And now we're coming back home and the kids are here and I'm trying to do that with them doing their thing, right? And so
Yeah,
it
and that should become a
pushes.
consistency, and the one thing, né? And that's possible. And also, when we allow to be guided by the Holy Spirit, even the idea, oh, and my love for Erica, as you mentioned it, né? Give that to the Holy Spirit, and He will show you that your love for Erica is the same love that you have for every being in the whole universe. And that is, of this we cannot speak. Ne? This is the, oh, there's something else going on. And I'm really part of the whole awakening of the sonship, ne? And be used for that. Ne?
But
So
I
no
hold,
end, just keep on going.
but I hold this so much differently, and that's something that I still
Mhm.
can recognize where I am,
Yeah,
you
but
know, and
this will disappear and indeed already has disappeared.
of
This is
course.
the past that I experience. And the faster I recognize that this thing I'm holding here, I'm not really holding here. I held it a long time ago and I'm just reliving a memory of it. What is it I'm holding really? I'm holding the heart of hearts. I'm holding God literally in me, that's what I'm holding, ne? And this
Yes.
to remember, even through the act of sexuality, that's our choice. This is what we can choose, and therefore, so it opens up for us.
So I have one more thing, if I may say. The the space to first and foremost go to the Holy Spirit has really been very clear to be the priority and the primary step. And from there, then it has been able to land, right?
Yes.
So,
And also, he teaches us personally, don't forget that. He teaches you exactly who you are, where you're coming from, what your experiences from the past are. Don't compare it with Erica's experience, with mine, or with anybody else's. Where we meet again is in the same recognition, in the same thought. But how we are guided in the undoing and healing, completely personal.
Mhm.
Supposed to be personal, should be personal, and we have to learn not to look outside at the others and how they are doing, but trust. Now I am opening up this communication with the Holy Spirit, and this is how I hear Him, how I understand Him, how He guides me, and then it's fine.
yes, thank you. Yeah.
It's basically if we try to make the way something that we all would need to understand and have the same, then we end up in conflicts in WhatsApp groups, for example. Ne? It's not gonna work that way. I mean, half of the guys here don't know what I mean, but we all are in WhatsApp groups, and that's we're trying that. Oh, and everybody should do the same thing and understand it the same way. No, the Holy Spirit teaches us completely personal, but the recognition is the same. Where we arrive is the same, and that needs to be okay, that it's just the goal that is God, which is the same. But the way might be a thousandfold, and it doesn't matter. Because once the light is in the way, it will guide us the fastest way we accept it for ourselves home. Okay, I think, Erica, your last words, and then we leave it for the day. We could talk for hours about that theme, and maybe we talk again about it. I think it's a great theme, and thank you so much, everyone, for participating and being here with us.
Yeah, thank you so much, all of you. Thank you for joining. Yeah, I love you so much. Thank you.
Cam, your last words.
Yes, this has been a good space always, and this one particularly was opening. Not even about the topic, but more so just the opening. So thank you
Yeah.
all. Thank
Thank
you.
Thank
you.
you. Thank you. I have a song from Lionel Richie. We all know it. And he sings it so beautiful. You probably already know All Night Long. Ne?
Come on, everybody.